I want to start by telling you about my dog, because you need to know him to understand why this story is worth telling. His name is Hank. He's a mutt. Some kind of hound and shepherd mix, the vet always says, though beyond that nobody's entirely sure. Brown and tan, floppy ears, about 65 pounds of dog who believes with his whole heart that he is a lapdog and has spent years trying to prove this to me at personal cost to my circulation. I've had him since he was 8 weeks old, and he is, without question, the most emotionally reliable creature I have ever known. Not dramatic, not anxious, not a dog who barks at things unnecessarily or startles at shadows or has the jumpy, high-strung quality that some dogs have. Hank is steady. Hank is calm. Hank has a resting heart rate that I'm convinced is lower than mine, and a default disposition that is essentially everything is fine, someone may have food, life is good. I tell you that because the thing he did for a week last November was entirely out of character. And when something is entirely out of character for someone you know as well as I know Hank, you pay attention. It started on a Monday night. I was in bed, lights off, Hank at the foot of the bed the way he always is. The two of us settled into the comfortable routine of two creatures who have been sharing sleeping space long enough that they've worked out all the logistics. I was maybe 10 minutes from sleep, that pleasant drift where thoughts start to get soft and disconnected, when Hank suddenly got up. Not his usual shifting position, get up, his alert, get up. I know the difference because Hank has different modes of movement, the way dogs do, and his alert mode has a quality of purposefulness to it that his regular movement doesn't. He got up and moved to the foot of the bed and stopped, and I heard the low sound he makes in his throat that isn't quite a growl and isn't quite a whine, but sits somewhere between them. His uncertainty sound, the one that means he's noticed something he doesn't have a category for yet. I sat up. The bedroom was dark. I reached for my phone on the nightstand for the flashlight, but before I turned it on, I just listened, the way you do, orienting to the space. Nothing. The house was quiet. No sound from outside that was unusual. No creak or settling noise from inside. Just Hank at the foot of the bed standing, doing that low, uncertain sound, and in the dark I could tell he was looking at the corner. The corner in question is the far corner of my bedroom, diagonally across from the bed to the left of the window. There is nothing in that corner. I want to be very clear about that because it matters. There is no furniture there, no pile of clothes or objects that in the dark could look like something it wasn't. There is a wall and a ceiling and a floor and the place where those three planes meet. That is all. Hank was standing at the foot of the bed, staring at an empty corner, making the sound he makes when he doesn't know what to make of something. I turned the flashlight on and swept the corner. Empty. Bare floor, two walls, nothing on them. I got up and walked over there and stood in the corner like a person who has been sent to think about what they've done and looked around. Nothing. No spider on the wall, no water damage, no small animal that might have gotten in somehow. Nothing. I said, "Hank, there's nothing there." Hank looked at me. Then he looked back at the corner. Then he laid down on the bed and put his head on his paws, and after a few minutes went to sleep. Okay. One night. Dogs do strange things sometimes. Their senses pick up things we can't. Smells, sounds at frequencies we don't register, small vibrations in the structure of a building. There's always an explanation for a dog being briefly alert to something you can't perceive. I didn't think much about it. Tuesday night, same thing. Same time, somewhere around the hour before midnight. Hank up, alert mode, the uncertain sound, standing at the foot of the bed looking at the corner. I checked the corner again. Nothing. Hank went back to sleep. Wednesday. Same. By Thursday I was no longer going back to sleep easily after Hank's corner visits. Not because I was frightened exactly, but because once a pattern establishes itself, my brain has trouble letting it go, starts turning it over. And turning things over is not compatible with drifting pleasantly towards sleep. I lay awake after Hank settled back down on Thursday night, and I thought about the corner and I tried to work through the practical explanations. Sound was the most likely one. Something in the wall or floor at that corner, a pipe, a beam, something in the structure of the house that was making a sound at that specific time of night that I couldn't hear but Hank could. Houses do things at night. They cool down and the materials contract and they make noises, and some of those noises are in ranges that dogs detect and humans don't. This is a real and well-documented thing, and it was my working theory for the first few days. But here's what made the sound theory hard to hold on to as the week went on. Hank wasn't reacting to a sound. I know what Hank looks like when he's reacting to a sound. He tilts his head, his ears move. He orients toward the source of the noise with that scanning quality that dogs have when they're using their hearing. He wasn't doing any of that. He was just looking. Steady, fixed, the way he looks at me when I have food and he wants me to know he knows. Not scanning, not tracking, just looking at a specific point in the corner and about the height of a seated person if a person were sitting on the floor there, and staying with it. Friday I did something I'm a little embarrassed to admit. I set up my phone to record the bedroom overnight, not because I expected to capture anything on video. Whatever was interesting about the corner was clearly not visible to me and was unlikely to be visible to a phone camera. But because I thought the audio might tell me something. If there was a sound in the wall, a pipe, a structural noise, maybe I'd hear it on playback at a frequency that was clearer through a recording than in real time. Saturday morning I listened to the recording. 8 hours of bedroom audio, which is not a thrilling listen. Mostly silence and Hank's occasional sleep breathing and the white noise of the house at night. At 11:43 p.m., I know the exact time because I scrubbed to the point of Hank's movement and checked the timestamp. I heard Hank get up. I heard him move to the foot of the bed. I heard the low, uncertain sound. And then I heard something I had not been aware of in real time and that made me sit at my kitchen table for a while before I could decide what to do with it. Under Hank's sound, very faint, barely there, almost below the threshold of what the recording could capture, there was something. A rhythm, not a mechanical rhythm, not a pipe or a beam, not a regular repeating interval, an irregular rhythm, the kind that a person makes when they're doing something with their hands that takes variable effort, like someone working at something. Not fast, not alarming. Just a small, irregular rhythmic sound in the corner of my bedroom at 11:43 at night. I listened to it 4 times. Then I put the phone down and looked at the corner of my kitchen, which was lit up in morning light and completely ordinary, and I sat with what I'd heard. I want to tell you about the house. I've lived here for about 4 years now. It's an older place, built in the 30s in one of those residential neighborhoods that grew up around a town's original core and has been gently aging ever since. The bones of the house are solid, good hardwood floors, plaster walls, the kind of construction that was built to last rather than built to sell. I bought it because of the bones and because of the yard and because the price was right and because there was something about the feel of it that I liked immediately. A quality of settled-inness that I've always responded to in older houses. I knew the basics of the house's history from the sale, who the previous owners were, rough dates of renovations. But I'd never dug further than that. I hadn't had a reason to. After listening to that recording, I had a reason. I spent a Saturday afternoon at the local library in the local history section, which is the kind of thing you do when you want actual information about an old house and you don't want to rely entirely on internet searches that may or may not be accurate. The librarian, the man who had clearly been doing this job for decades and had the particular satisfaction of someone who was expert in their domain, helped me find the relevant records. Ownership history, city directories going back to the 30s, a couple of local newspaper archives. The house had had 4 families in it over its history, mine being the 4th. The second family had lived there the longest, from the late 40s through the early 80s. A husband and wife, and at various points children who grew up and left. The husband had died in the house in his 70s from natural causes in 1979. The wife had continued living there until 1983 when the house was sold. The librarian, making conversation while I was looking through the records, mentioned that he'd grown up in the same neighborhood and had known the family slightly. He said the husband had been a craftsman of some kind, a woodworker, he thought, had a workshop set up in part of the house. He said the man was known in the neighborhood for being industrious, always working on something with his hands, the kind of person whose hands were never idle. A woodworker, always working on something with his hands. I thanked the librarian and drove home and went to my bedroom and stood in the corner. The far corner, diagonally from the bed to the left of the window. Bare floor, 2 walls, nothing in them. I stood in it for a while. I thought about an old man with a woodworker's hands, industrious, always working on something, never idle. I thought about what it might mean to have spent a lifetime doing something with your hands in a space, and what, if anything, got left behind in the walls and floors of a place after a lifetime of that. I thought about Hank, who has never in his life barked at or fixated on anything without a reason, sitting at the foot of the bed looking at this corner at the same time every night. I said out loud into the corner, feeling exactly as self-conscious as you're imagining. I don't mind you being here. I just wanted you to know that I know. That Saturday night Hank got up one more time. Same corner. The uncertain sound, but it was shorter than the previous nights. 30 seconds, maybe, rather than the 2 or 3 minutes it had been, and then he came up to my pillow end of the bed, which he almost never does. He's a foot-of-the-bed dog, but he came up to the pillow end and lay down right up against me and let out the long breath he does when he's fully relaxed, and went to sleep. He has not looked at the corner since, not once. 7 nights of consistent attention to that corner, and then one 30-second check after I said what I said, and then nothing. The corner is just a corner again, as far as Hank is concerned. I don't know what to make of that. I've tried the rational explanation. Coincidence. The sound in the wall stopped for some unrelated reason. Hank had a week-long neurological episode that resolved on its own. All possible, none of them satisfying. What I come back to is the recording. That small, irregular rhythm under Hank's voice, not mechanical, not regular, the sound of hands doing variable work, and the man the librarian remembered, industrious, always working on something, hands never idle, and Hank, who knows the difference between something worth watching and something not worth watching, and who watched that corner every night for a week, and then, after I said a few quiet words into it, came and lay against me and let the whole thing go. I think about him sometimes, that man. I don't know his name. I didn't write it down that afternoon at the library, which I've kicked myself for since. I know he lived in my house for decades. I know he worked with his hands. I know my dog could see or sense or in some way perceive him where I couldn't. And I know that whatever Hank was seeing in that corner didn't frighten him, just puzzled him, the way something unfamiliar puzzles a calm and steady dog. I've slept well in that room since. Better, honestly, than I did before that week, which I can't entirely explain. There's something about knowing the history of the place you sleep in that settles things, even when the history is strange. Maybe especially when the history is strange. My bedroom is warm and quiet, and Hank sleeps at the foot of the bed and occasionally shifts in his dreams, and the corner is just a corner, and whatever was working in it for a week has gone quiet, and I find I'm glad I said what I said. I think he just needed someone to know he was there. Maybe that's all any of us need in the end, someone to know we're there. Hank's snoring now. He does this thing where he snores but then hears himself snoring and startles slightly and stops and then immediately starts again. It's one of my favorite sounds in the world. This house is warm and quiet, and the corner is just a corner, and I'm going to sleep. I hope you do too. Good night.